This is huge and it's happening. Hit subscribe to this channel. We've talked about this for years. Comey, in this case, John Brennan, will all be indicted. Hillary Clinton as well. What they did was criminal. Hit subscribe to this channel, to my super chat. Thank you. It's all happening in the manner that I said it would, and that others said it would as well. But I've been telling you this for years on this channel. House Republicans refer Obama CIA Chief Brennan to DOJ. Go to H.A. Goodman's other channel after this. I'll have an upload summarizing this live stream. Let's get started, everybody. It's happening. And everyone involved in RUSSIAGATE will be indicted because what they did was criminal. There was never any evidence pointing to Trump and Russia. Not one shred. It was all fabricated from the very beginning, and that is a fact. That's not conjecture. That is an absolute fact.
Consequences for bad faith deep state actors continue. Earlier today, the House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan referred former CIA Director John Brennan to the DOJ for prosecution over allegations that he made false statements to Congress about his role in the Russia collusion hoax. In his letter, Jordan said, in part, quote, making false statements before Congress is a crime that undermines the integrity of the committee's constitutional duty to conduct oversight. Anyway, House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan is with us with more. I've read your letter to Pam Bondi. It is a, wow, powerful prima facie case. He directly lied to Congress numerous times, and you believe you have the evidence.
Yeah, you're not supposed to lie, Sean, but you're definitely not supposed to lie when you're under oath talking to Congress. And that's exactly what it looks like John Brennan did. He said he wasn't involved with the dossier at all. He said that to us under oath. He said he didn't want it included in the intelligence community assessment, the report that's put together. But then ODNI Director Tulsi Gabbard declassified a report that said just the opposite. In fact, John Brennan put in writing that he felt the dossier should be included in the report. And more importantly, when he was confronted by an individual who works at the CIA, and the individual said, Mr. Brennan, this dossier just doesn't hold up. There's not the underlying intelligence to support it. And Brennan's response was, yeah, but doesn't it ring true? Showing his true color, showing that he was out to get President Trump. So we think he lied. We think it's clear. And I'll be, Sean, I don't do a lot of these. I've done very few referrals. You got to have the evidence to do this. We think it's there. We think it is clear. We appreciate what Tulsi released and declassified that report, and that's why we sent it to the Justice Department. And we'll see what the Attorney General Bondi and Deputy Attorney General Blanche do with it now.
They reject.
There will be an indictment 100%. The DOJ is not going to look at it under Pam Bondi after John Ratcliffe and Tulsi Gabbard and Kash Patel say, hey, here's the crime. Here are the examples that John Brennan lied to Congress. The DOJ isn't going to be like previous DOJs protecting powerful intel officials who sided against Trump and with the Democratic Party or the Never Trump Republicans. This isn't rocket science. It's politics. It's the world that Trump's adversaries created. They set him up and framed him. There was not a shred of evidence. And if the rebuttal is, well, there were ties or contacts, the Uranium One scandal had endless ties, contacts, money trail. If the standard is that Clinton's foundation can receive millions of dollars from people tied to the Kremlin, and then miraculously, coincidentally, 20% of U.S. uranium capacity could be given to the Russians under President Obama's administration. If the standard is that's okay, if the political standard, if the viewpoint is that according to the sensibilities of those who care about national security, that's not a problem, then absolutely nothing Trump did warranted any investigation, because nothing happened. Literally nothing happened. They had to set up and frame Carter Page and George Papadopoulos, and they used a document, the Steele dossier, purchased by Clinton and the DNC. And the fact that they filtered that document through the U.S. government is a crime.
The first intel assessment, senior career intel officials at the CIA concluded there was no Trump-Russia collusion after the 2016 election. The declassified documents say Obama himself ordered it. And didn't they include, and didn't Brennan know, and wasn't he a part of the meeting that took place about a new intelligence assessment in this case?
Yeah. They changed the report between Election Day 2016, Inauguration Day in January 2017. They changed it in December, and they changed it to say something that wasn't supported by the intelligence. And then, to make matters worse, they go up to Trump Tower on January 6, 2017, and brief the president on the dossier that they know is garbage. That someone in the CIA who's familiar with the underlying intelligence told Director Brennan, you shouldn't use this. It doesn't hold up. But his response again was, doesn't it ring true? We're going to go up, set up President Trump, and create the predicate for Mueller and all the other garbage they did in his first term. And I always point out, this is when it all began. And remember, Sean, with John Brennan, there's a pattern. We include this in our letter. I think he lied to Congressman Gowdy back in 2017 about this very subject. We include that. And the irony, of course, is he lied under oath to us when we were questioning him about a different issue. The 51 former intel officials who signed that garbage letter saying the Hunter Biden laptop was a Russian information operation.
Imagine if Eric Trump or Donald Trump Jr. had 50 intelligence officials say that bribery and graft in a laptop was Russian disinformation, which you don't ever debate a morally superior apoplectic liberal Democrat. There's no point to it ever. That's my advice to every one of my amazing subscribers, people watching. Never do it. They will ruin Thanksgiving dinners or get-togethers. They'll go on their, hysterical diatribe, and it's not worth it because they don't know what John Brennan did. The average, wonderful, morally superior liberal Democrat doesn't know that James Comey leaked information to create a narrative. They don't know that John Brennan lied about using a dossier purchased by Clinton. They have no clue that Hillary Clinton's Steele dossier was filtered through the United States government. And they can't possibly fathom if Trump had done that. What if Trump and Giuliani had purchased a dossier to set up Harris or Biden or Obama or Clinton and say that they were in a Moscow hotel room? They could never possibly put themselves in Trump's shoes. They would never allow 51 intelligence officials to go to bat for any of President Trump's children. But they do that because you think they would allow President Trump to have top secret intelligence on servers? They would be accusing him of espionage and being a spy of Russia. They wouldn't simply say, "Oh, well, it was about yoga,"
which was pure garbage. So there's a pattern with Mr. Brennan. We illustrate that. But the clear evidence where he violated 18 U.S.C. 1001, we believe, is when he made those statements and then Director Gabbard, God bless her, released the declassified report that said something entirely different.
All right, Jim Jordan, we'll follow this closely. Thank you. Hey, Sean.
By the way, you can go to hagoodman.com and watch. I was the only person years back stating that absurd message board should never be listened to, and it was almost certainly a psyop, almost certainly by either a Democratic operative or somebody that wanted to create a lot of turmoil among very good but easily impressionable people. So the message board with a certain letter, that was done to muddy the waters. There was never actually a belief in a message board by people with a certain letter. Okay, that was complete and utter nonsense. And I debated one of the people who thought it was, or maybe pretended to think that it was real years back. But none of this is about a message board. This is about the FBI and CIA did worse than what when you have these intelligence agencies actually taking over countries or helping destabilize countries, that's worse than what happened here. But what took place here is one of the greatest and most diabolical political scandals in American history, the greatest. They created a Cold War utilizing a dossier purchased by Clinton, and now Comey is indicted. really for leaking information directly pertaining to. So these aren't process crimes. These are crimes directly pertaining to setting up and framing Trump and lying to the American people. Let's continue.
Committee Chairman Jim Jordan sending Attorney General Pam Bondi a letter referring former CIA Director John Brennan to the Justice Department for allegedly making false statements to Congress. Jordan accused Brennan of lying in his 2023 Judiciary Committee testimony by denying community assessment on Brennan's assertion that the CIA was not
Does there have to be that theme music?
Involved at all with the senior CIA officers who objected to the inclusion of the dossier material. And we now know that dossier
was the one that most successfully laundered the Steele dossier, not just into public consciousness, but making it the backbone of Russiagate, because without the Steele dossier, you didn't have anything, right? And we now know the Steele dossier was mostly Russian disinformation, all made up, very easily falsified within hours of its publication. Historically speaking, we did not refer people for criminal prosecution just for process crimes, but that all changed with the lawfare against Donald Trump, right? A hush money payment to Stormy Daniels, that on its own historically was not a crime. But now we're saying perjury. Brennan, you can't lie to Congress. These are your rules.
I've seen reports that President Trump wants reimbursement for legal fees for all of this.
But also, okay, so for example, when General Flynn was, and that's a great point, but when General Flynn was indicted, or when George Papadopoulos, they didn't lie about anything to do with collusion. Brennan and Comey and others lied directly because they were trying to evade responsibility for setting up and framing Trump with a dossier. Their indictments are not the same type of indictments as Mueller, which was just for show and for public relations. These indictments aren't just process crimes. They are crimes directly related to a conspiracy to set up and frame Trump. So that's what took place.
This because of the tens of millions of dollars that he had to spend to defend himself against what we now know were baseless accusations made by Democrats who were just out to get him and wanted him
weaponization.
In jail.
Weaponization.
You know, yeah.
And when you look, I hate to virtue signal here, but when you come from small town, Martins Ferry, Ohio, my office is in Union, Kentucky, small towns. People are getting very irritated with the political theater at the top, the lying. What can you believe anymore? I mean, it's very frustrating for those small town hard workers that, are just trying to get ahead in life, and they can't actually do that because you have all this back and forth, what's going on at the top, and you have all these things going on. And then you combine that, and I hate to bring AI into this, with the whole AI stuff. What can you believe anymore? It's very frustrating for those people.
But real quick, Tiana, I know we got to run, but real quick, it seems that the John Brennan accusations actually are even worse on its surface than what Comey's been accused of.
Yes, there's way more of a paper trail to show that Brennan was the one who was pushing this, right? Jim Comey can just say, I was just the guy at the top at the end who produced the report. I wasn't the one with, it was Brennan that was pushing the inclusion in the ICA, and that was the entire basis for, remember, the domestic surveillance of the Trump campaign. That was a huge one.
And also, when they ask Brennan about Comey's involvement, Brennan is going to say, of course, Comey wanted. So they're all going to turn on each other. Comey wanted the Steele dossier. And Comey's going to say, I was given the Steele dossier. Oh, I didn't want to use it. I was given it. They're all going to, when they kept saying that Trump's people would flip and sing, the opposite was true. There was no crime, so nobody could flip on and turn or become a traitor because there was no crime. These people set up and framed Trump on further statutes or counts. So there will be superseding indictments for Comey and Brennan. Let's continue.
For treason, claiming that he was an agent of a foreign power, an agent of Russia. And that intelligence was never shared with you or I as members of congressional oversight committees on intelligence. But for the good fortune of me being able to find John Brennan's notes and declassify that secret may have been hidden forever, but I was able to provide that to John Durham, and you see some of that in his annex that was declassified this week. And so what you learned in this annex that many people didn't know before was details of that Hillary Clinton plan and how it included groups like the Soros Foundation and the role that the FBI played. So before all of this started, Trey, what we did know was this, that on July 31st of 2016, the FBI did something as shocking as it was unprecedented. They opened a criminal investigation into a nominee for president, a candidate for President Donald Trump, something that had never been done before. But what you learned in John Brennan's annex this week was 6 days before that, Russian intelligence predicted that's exactly what would happen, that there was a Hillary Clinton plan and that the FBI would pour oil on the fire of a firestorm that would consume the country for the next 3 years. So think about that, Trey. Either the Russians made the greatest prediction or the luckiest guess of all time, or this intelligence was real.
And so we talked about this yesterday. I don't have all the documents right now. It's up online, or the articles. Politico, they got the man they wanted. That was the article. The Clinton campaign, the WikiLeaks emails, they literally elevated Trump. That's why you should hit subscribe to this channel right now, because let's say you don't even like Trump. Let's say you don't even like Make America Great Again, or let's say you just don't think this is like real or genuine. Okay. There are articles, and I'm speaking to anyone just simply that's, stumbles upon this channel, doesn't think that all of this is important. There's a Politico article. There are the WikiLeaks emails regarding the Clinton campaign emails, where they state we need to elevate Ben Carson, Ted Cruz, and Donald Trump in a Pied Piper strategy. They literally wanted to elevate Trump. The Clinton campaign and the Russians, if you were to listen to Democrats, both the Clinton campaign before they lost and the Russians before and after wanted President Trump. That not only doesn't make any sense, it points to exactly the conspiracy. They wanted to elevate President Trump. They thought they could defeat him. They lost to him. Then 180-degree turn. They said, oh my God, the Russians. But they were the ones who elevated President Trump first. And there's public record sources. You can watch this segment prior to this one yesterday. 30,000 views or so. Let's continue.
And of course, the answer is this intelligence was real. And how do we know that? Well, subsequently, under penalty of perjury, while under oath, Hillary Clinton's own campaign manager confirmed that there was such a plan and that Hillary approved it. So that, I think, in addition to what you learn about the FBI's role that came out this week, was that this intelligence that was so shocking that John Brennan brought together the National Security Council, President Obama, Vice President Biden, Clapper, Comey, Susan Rice, and briefed them on this intelligence about a Hillary Clinton plan to frame Donald Trump, and that the CIA made the required referral of that to the FBI to investigate that as a counterintelligence matter. And as John Durham found, the FBI buried it. They didn't open a file. They didn't assign an analyst. They didn't investigate it all. They just spent the next few years, really, amplifying the lie of Hillary Clinton's Steele dossier and burying the truth of her plan to frame Donald Trump. It is the greatest political scandal that we hopefully will be the last that we'll see in our lifetime.
It was a crime to use the Steele dossier. Everyone who participated in filtering the dossier into the U.S. government committed a crime. There are lawyers and there's legal analysis. There's liberal legal channels that always say Trump is wrong, and they've been wrong on almost everything. That Trump's going to be indicted and da-da-da. He was indicted, but nothing happened. These people will be indicted and convicted because they actually committed crimes. Nothing happened with Trump because he didn't commit a crime. He was a president with the power to declassify. Other presidents did far worse. Secretary of State definitely did with top secret intel on servers, which is impossible from a cybersecurity perspective to hold top secret intel or classified data to transfer that onto servers. It's impossible from a cybersecurity perspective, and it's illegal. But every single person involved in utilizing the Steele dossier committed a crime. Now, you can say, well, it was already litigated, not with the new Tulsi Gabbard and Clinton Annex, Durham probe annex information, and all the declassified documents. It was never litigated appropriately or correctly because nobody had the declassified documents. Now everybody does.
Speaking of amplify, Director, I want you to amplify a point that you just made, because you and I both know John Brennan, the New York Times, they're still in denial. They're claiming that none of this has been verified.
Well, they have to, Trey. They have to, because to do otherwise would be to confess their guilt. My critics in this regard, Brennan and Comey and Clapper, they said I was wrong about there was no Russia collusion. They said I was wrong that Hunter Biden's laptop was real. Of course I was right. I was telling the truth. Our intelligence reflected that, and the same is true here. This intelligence is real. And for Comey and Brennan and Clapper to say otherwise would be to confess their guilt, to say that they gave false testimony, that they misled Congress, that they obstructed justice. So they have to put up these straw man arguments saying, well, we stand by our assessment that Russia meddled in the 2016.
There was never an assessment. The initial assessment stated they didn't want Trump and they didn't care who won. And not one vote was altered. So how could they have meddled? Because of the WikiLeaks emails, where there's no evidence that any of the released emails were the work of Russia. Why would Russia inform the country that Clinton and the DNC were cheating Bernie Sanders, or that they wanted Trump, or all the other things that you learned that President Obama knew of Clinton's servers? Why would Russia inform the country of Democratic Party corruption? Does that make any sense? The rebuttal is, well, obviously because they despise Trump, or they wanted Trump, they despise Democrats. It's like, well, the DNC never gave its computer servers to the FBI. That's another whole can of worms. But it's hilarious that every single scandal that Democrats had for the past 10 years, they blame Russia. When in reality, they literally wanted Trump. It's within the writing, their own emails.
Well, that wasn't their argument. Their argument was that this was unprecedented, that Donald Trump was potentially committing treason, that he was an agent of a foreign power. And so, they have to take that point. And to the point of the New York Times and the Washington Post, the same thing. They don't want to admit that they wrote thousands of false stories. So they don't want to give back the Pulitzer Prizes that they gain for writing those false stories. So they're doing it to do anything other than to try and fight this and say that it's not real would be to admit their guilt, and to admit they were wrong, and to admit that they deliberately misled the American people, which is exactly what they did.
Yeah, they also might want to read Hillary Clinton's campaign manager's sworn testimony, because he admits what you just said. They deny it, but we'll see what they say when they get under oath. Is there more to come from either you or FBI Director Patel? Are there more shoes to drop that we should be looking for?
Yeah, there are, Trey. So, people need to understand that, there is no Russia collusion hoax file cabinet at the FBI or at the CIA. We have to look for these documents, sometimes that are well hidden. You have to go trace through emails and look for signs and clues that would point you to. That's how I found John Brennan's notes, and that's how we found additional documents. I've talked with FBI Director Patel. He and I will be declassifying additional documents that show just how sinister the FBI was in amplifying Hillary Clinton's Steele dossier as real and credible to be included in the intelligence community assessment, but also in how they buried the counterintelligence referral memo that I mentioned before.
So Hillary Clinton will be indicted. I've been saying that for the past decade, but it'll happen. And if you watch this channel, you'll see, you will have known exactly why she would be indicted. Top secret intel on the servers is impossible. That should have taken place, but Comey covered that up. James Comey obviously covered that up. The issue is that the Durham probe had Clinton and Brennan testify, and others. Almost everyone within the Durham probe testimony within the past 5 years will be indicted. Not every single person, but at least 3, 4, 5, 6 people, including Clinton and, of course, John Brennan. Now, John Brennan.
They went to great lengths to try and keep that out of the intelligence community assessment. So there will be more to come, and I think that people should expect that the Trump administration will continue to shed transparency and light and truth again, because Trey, there is no question this was the greatest political scandal of our lifetime. No one wants to see this happen again. It derailed our country. It derailed President Trump's presidency, his first 4 years in office, and it really is a stain on our country that should never happen again. And Donald Trump is committed to making sure that it doesn't.
Generational damage is what I think was done, Director. But thank goodness that you found the Brennan notes. To your point, they're not like laying in a file cabinet. You got to go looking for them. And I do wonder, you're too modest to comment, but I do wonder if you had been picked to be the FBI director instead of Chris Wray, would it have taken a decade for this to come to light? You don't have to answer because I will. I don't think so. Director John Lee Ratcliffe, now of the CIA, thank you for continuing to work on what's a decade-long mission right now.
Mr. Durham, in the summer of 2016, Mr. Durham, in the summer.
So this is John Durham. He deserves the Presidential Medal of Freedom. He is awesome, and he did a lot of work, even though the certain prosecutions didn't work out, because you still had people defending those who committed crimes. That's not going to be possible now. So this is a completely different DOJ, a completely different FBI, CIA, all of them, ODNI. So you go from Biden's administration to President Trump's second administration after Butler, Pennsylvania, where a firefighter lost his life protecting his family, where President Trump's life was almost taken. None of the machine, almost certainly the wonderful Democratic Party, never imagined that President Trump would have a second term. And now his second term is what media would call a reckoning.
In the summer of 2016, did our government receive intelligence that suggested Secretary Clinton had approved a plan to tie President Trump to Russia?
Yes.
Was that intelligence important enough for Director Brennan to go brief the President of the United States, the Vice President of the United States, the Attorney General of the United States, and the Director of the FBI?
Yes.
And was that intelligence put then into a memorandum, a referral memorandum?
Yes.
And was that memorandum then given to Director Comey and Agent Strzok?
That's who it was addressed to, yes.
Did Director Comey share that memorandum with the FISA court?
I'm sorry,
Did he share that memorandum with the FISA court? Did Director Comey do that?
I'm not aware of that if he did.
Did he share it with the lawyers preparing the FISA application?
Not to my knowledge.
Did he share it with the agents on the case, working the Crossfire Hurricane case?
No.
Didn't share it with the agents on the case. Can you tell the committee what happened when you took that referral memo and shared it with one of those agents, specifically Supervisory Special Agent Number 1?
We interviewed the first supervisor of the Crossfire investigation, the operational person. We showed him the intelligence information. He indicated he had never seen it before. He immediately became emotional, got up and left the room with his lawyer, spent some time in the hallway.
Why would an official become emotional having learned that potentially the individual was a part of something that he didn't, or she didn't want to be a part of? Why would they become emotional? Why do you think that is?
Came back,
He was ticked off, wasn't he?
Yes.
He was ticked off because this is something he should have had as an agent on the case. Is important information that the director of the FBI kept from the people doing the investigation.
The information was kept from him.
Who's Charles Dolan?
Charles Dolan is a public relations person here in Washington, D.C. He had prior involvement, professional involvement with Russian government, representing Russian government interests. He was a person that was associated with Igor Danchenko.
He was also buddies with the Clintons, wasn't he?
He had held positions when President Clinton was president.
In their campaign advisory to Secretary Clinton's presidential campaign, executive director of the Democrat Governors Association. That's the same Charles Dolan we're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, and wasn't he also a key source for information in the dossier?
He provided some information that was included in
Ritz-Carlton
the dossier,
stuff, the Manafort stuff. In the Crossfire Hurricane investigation and the Mueller investigation, when the FBI interviewed Mr. Dolan, what did he have to say?
To my knowledge, they didn't interview Mr. Dolan.
They didn't interview this guy? Source for the dossier? Key information in the dossier? Buddies with the Clintons? They didn't talk to him?
No. I mean, we report on that because even Christopher Steele in October 2016 identified Dolan as somebody that might have information.
I find it interesting they didn't talk to him. Were there agents on the case who wanted to talk to Mr. Dolan, Mr. Durham?
Yes.
What happened to analyst number one? She kept pushing to talk to Mr. Dolan. She was ultimately turned down. What happened to her the day that she was turned down and said, no, we're not talking to Dolan? What happened to her?
At about the same time, she was assigned to a different project.
They moved her. They said, we can't have this. We can't have that. We can't be looking into the Clintons' buddy, a key source for the dossier. They reassigned her. And then what did she do?
She memorialized it.
She entered a memo to the file because she said, at some point the inspector general is going to want to know this information. I'm going to make sure it's recorded contemporaneously. She put it in the file.
So when Comey and Brennan and a whole bunch of other people are indicted and these trials take place, the defense, each of them is going to need a defense that could possibly harm the other person. So Brennan is going to say, I gave the dossier to Comey because he asked for it. Comey is going to say, I never asked for the dossier. It was pushed by Brennan. That type of thing. So the conspiracy statute indictments, that'll happen in about 5-6 months. There's already a grand jury, from what's been reported, on conspiracy statutes. These are easy. The perjury is obvious. They all lied. Andrew McCabe has stated that James Comey lied. He stated that through his legal counsel numerous times with the IG report. The IG report, page 28, says that McCabe's account should be believed over Comey's for a number of reasons, according to his legal counsel. Let's continue. We can go on forever.
It's crazy. They didn't talk to the key source. They kept key intelligence from the investigators. This is how bad this investigation was. But here's the scary part. I don't think anything has changed. The day your report came out, 5 weeks ago, May 15th, you got a letter, Mr. Durham, addressed to you from the general counsel at the FBI, Mr. Jason Jones, writes you this 6-page letter, and he says, not to worry, everything is fine. It's all been worked out at the FBI. He even says on page 2, he says, had the reforms implemented by current FBI leadership, summarized below, been in place in 2016, failures detailed in your report never would have happened, and he underlines it. He said this would never happen because of the reforms we implemented in 2019 and 2020. And then he says on page 4, one of the specific reforms, he says, FBI executive management has instructed investigations should be run out of the field and not from the headquarters. That statement is not true. 5 weeks ago, the FBI wrote you and said everything has changed when in fact it hasn't, and a statement in there is absolutely false, and we know it's false because 2 weeks ago today, we interviewed Stephen D'Antuono, former head of the Washington field office, Mr. Durham, and here's what he said in his transcript. Head of the Washington field office, when the Trump classified document investigation began, he said, that case was handled differently than I would have expected it to be, than any other cases handled. We learned a lot of stuff from Crossfire Hurricane, that headquarters should not work the investigation. It's supposed to be the field offices.
Why weren't the field offices running the investigations? What are your thoughts on that? To the chat, 600, 700 people. Why didn't the field offices at the FBI run the investigations? Why would Comey and McCabe and all of these people at the top want to run the investigations as opposed to people on the ground?
My concern is that the Department of Justice was not following these principles. Nothing is, and that's the thing that scares me the most. Nothing has changed. Mr. Durham, I'm just finished with this. 60% of Americans now believe there's a double standard at the Justice Department. You know why they believe that? Because there is.
So this, of course, was in 2023, which is, of course, within the statute of limitations. So let's continue. This is Congresswoman Victoria Spartz, representative from Indiana. She is absolutely unbelievable, fantastic, amazing, awesome, very powerful, and she basically summarizes all of the transgressions and criminal behavior that Durham, memorialized or uncovered. Check this out. This is awesome. She is awesome.
Mr. Dolan, I will quote excerpts from your report describing the FBI actions in Trump's case. You call them sobering, I call them alarming. Rapid opening, made no sense, no sound reason, no explanation, difficult to explain, no follow-up, uncorroborated evidence, unevaluated information, rumors and speculations, thin intelligence, exculpatory statements were not included, misrepresentation of the recorded conversation, noticeable departure, not using typical tools, serious lack of rigor, choose to ignore red flags, unwarranted delay, ignore nearly all recommendations, didn't disclose intelligence, not inform of inconsistencies, did not give appropriate attention to facts, did not adequately examine, did not receive satisfactory explanation, was not informed, never corrected assertion, never advised, never been apprised, never gave appropriate consideration, no further action, failed to make known, failed to act, failed to follow logical leads, failed to interview, failed to revise the paperwork, failed to take even the basic steps, failed to determine, failure to provide, failure to integrate, failure to fully exploit the materials, failure to critically analyze information, failure to properly consider, failure to correct errors, ignored contrary evidence, was never brought to the attention, intentionally falsified in material documents, fabricated the allegation, omission of material fact, numerous significant defects, 17 material errors and omissions, inaccurate representation, deliberately shut down, told not to write and provide findings orally, incorrectly noted, missed another opportunity, omitted email, omitted information, did not corroborate, never sought to obtain records, resisted efforts, conflicting recollection, troubling failure of recollection, not in a single FBI employee, curious change in assessment, key players declined to be interviewed, lack sufficient probable cause, frustration on the part of investigators, sense of betrayal, highly unusual instruction, director was really shocking, and the list goes on. Dolan, with extensive connection to the Democrat Party and access to senior Russian officials and Putin's think tank, was never interviewed, request was denied, case was never opened, Auden instructing to cease all research and analysis related to Dolan. Leadership directed to dedicate no resources to Dolan. FBI interviewed hundreds of individuals, yet they did not interview Dolan. Danchenko failure to properly consider prior Russian counter-espionage case. FBI's validation unit raised serious concern. Management ignored and resisted nearly all recommendations and supported continued payment to him. Jonas Weiner, special envoy to Secretary Kerry to Libya, who worked as lobbyist for Russian oligarch Deripaska with ties to Putin, disseminated Steele dossier to the U.S. official and destroyed his records. Deripaska was allowed to buy, control, and package in uranium company with extensive mining projects in the United States approved by Secretary Clinton's State Department in 2010. The former head of the FBI's counterintelligence division in New York, McGonigal, involved with this case, recently was accused of taking money from Deripaska. Clinton case from your report stands in stark contrast. Lack of action, considerable caution, never open inquiry, in limbo, linger, defensive briefing, corroborating information, no effort to investigate cease and desist due to the undisclosed concern, decline to issue subpoenas. You're concerned with FBI's reputational harm. But it appears to me, using Director's Clapper's lexicon, this case has all classic earmarks of collusion and cover-up. However, not one person went to jail, and Clinton campaign operatives like Jake Sullivan now have the highest national security position in our government, who's actually driving a very slow response to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Do you believe that justice has been served?
So she is using, as she stated, the lexicon within Durham's report. You heard the endless list, and she is fantastic. Congresswoman from Indiana, Victoria Spartz. She's absolutely fantastic because she lists from the Durham report all of the criminal behavior. It's criminal behavior. It's not just bureaucracy. Oh, we forgot to do this. It's obviously using bureaucracy to set up and frame political opponents, which is a crime. Let's continue. She was brilliant.
I can speak to what my team and I did, which was to try
Just tell me yes or no. Do you believe has been served?
We tried to serve justice to the best of our ability.
Okay.
I can speak on that.
You also state Russian intelligence knew of still election investigation for the Clinton campaign before Crossfire Hurricane was opened, and still some sources could have been compromised by Russian. However, FBI have not appropriately considered to the possibility that the still reports was Russian disinformation. Is that correct?
If we're talking about Mr. Danchenko?
No, just you said, and this is in your report, you say that Russia, FBI never considered the possibility that still reports was Russian information in full and part. Is that correct? That they didn't. Do you know why?
I don't know why, but I think that's correct.
Another question. CHS-1 FBI spy, and I'm assuming Stephen Halper, invited Page at the request of the FBI to conference in UK, created Manafort-Page conspiracy allegation in direct conflict with his recordings. FBI never fully transcribed recording, misstated the Crossfire Hurricane significant appropriate fact on Page session conversation. He didn't show up with subpoena and what included in very shady case in 1980s. In your report, you were able to establish that CHS intentionally lied to the FBI. You were not able to establish why and what you did.
Okay, I'm not sure.
CHS-1.
I'm sorry?
CHS-1, you said that you were not able to establish that CHS-1 intentionally lied to the FBI. What did you do and what didn't do to establish it? You're not able to establish.
Let me see. This is on page 89.
The gentlelady's time has expired. We'll let the witness answer. I think she's referring to confidential human source number 1, Mr. Durham.
You said you were unable to establish it. It's at the end of your report. I think it's at the end of it.
Only
The context of that is in the Steele reporting, one of the pieces of information that had been used in the dossiers was that Mr. Page allegedly
did you interview him? What did you do to establish?
We got to move quickly.
Mr. Chairman,
the gentlelady's time has expired. We'll let the witness answer the question. We are going to have to stick closer to the 5-minute rule because they're holding votes on the floor until we finish today's business.
Okay, so
you can answer real quick, sure.
So one of the things in the Steele report was that Carter Page allegedly had met with 2 sanctioned Russians when he was in Moscow in July. We were able to establish that that was not the truth. I mean, you look at the evidence that that's not true, and the FBI should have been able to detect that, and they didn't detect it. But that was a meeting that supposedly occurred in July of 2016, or meetings, one of them with Mr. Sechin. Later, when the FBI had opened Crossfire Hurricane, and in December of 2016, CHS-1 met with Mr. Page, again, recorded a conversation with Mr. Page. And he, several days later, told his handling agent that, I forgot to tell you that Page said that on Page's most recent trip to Russia, where he worked or had business interests, he met with Sechin. And the FBI, when you look at the communications in the FBI, they're saying, that sounds kind of screwy here, but we should look at that. They apparently never looked at that. We went and got the recording of that conversation that had occurred between CHS-1 and Mr. Page in December of 2016. And Page never said that he had met with Sechin on his most recent visit.
Mr. Chairman,
So Carter Page was set up and framed. None of these people ever did anything wrong. The issue was that they needed a pretext. they needed a pretext. The Steele dossier got the ball rolling, but they needed just other reasons to continue to investigate. Byron Donalds does a brilliant job here. Check this out.
Good. Gentleman from Florida, Mr. Donalds, is now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chairman.
So it's important to note the DNC and Hillary Clinton's campaign they had to pay a Federal Election Commission fine. When you're listening to this, they literally had to pay a Federal Election Commission fine because they cheated Bernie Sanders, but not Sanders. All his campaign donations for his movement that eventually became a bowel movement went to the Steele dossier, which of course they were going to write about Bernard Sanders if he got too close to winning, which would be impossible because they don't even have a functioning primary. But Lord knows what they would have found about the Russians and Bernard Sanders in a hotel room. Who knows? But anyway, the Democrats took money from Bernie Sanders supporters and paid for a Steele dossier to thrust the country into a never-ending Red Scare McCarthy-era zeitgeist. But they paid a Federal Election Commission fine. So the donations that Bernie Sanders supporters gave, the donations that the I'm With Her crowd gave, went to purchasing a dossier, which, by the way, most of the I'm With Her crowd, I'm sure, would likely have no problem with, but it's criminal. But let's continue.
Welcome back. Hey, do you remember where we left off, you and I?
I do. You're a very good questioner, sir.
All right, well, let me refresh. Let's bring some things up. Where we left off was, did you facilitate the payment for the Steele dossier for the Hillary Clinton campaign back in 2016? Because you were the CFO. You acknowledged that. You also said, in response to my question, that this payment was not something that I was aware of, quote unquote. Those are your words. Interesting things have occurred since then. John Podesta actually testified to a committee of Congress, and John Podesta testified to a question about, was Gary, meaning you, was he day-to-day, hands-on, signing every check? And so John Podesta testifies, actually he was under a deposition with a committee here in Congress. He says, yes, I don't know if he signed the checks, but he was there every day, meaning you. So let's circle back. Were you aware of the fact that the Hillary Clinton campaign actually paid for the Steele dossier, which unleashed one of the worst issues of intelligence malfeasance that our nation has ever seen?
No, sir, I answered this 6 months ago, and this is the same answer today. No.
You weren't aware of what was going on? Mr. Gensler, I find that very interesting because, if I listen to some of the people and the staff that have left the SEC, you're very aware of everything that is going on. It's actually your MO. You're very hands-on. So you're going to tell the committee right now, you had no idea that the Hillary Clinton campaign, of which you were the CFO on, sent money to Perkins Coie for a dossier that was phony, that led to the spying of a presidential campaign in 2016. You were not aware of any of this.
Look, sir, as a chief financial officer in a political campaign, I was not aware of what a law firm was doing with some of the monies that they got.
Now, I find that.
Yeah, but he's not really answering the question. He was aware that the law firm, is he stating, I don't even know, is he stating that he was aware that the law firm received the money? Because they paid a Federal Election Commission fine, the DNC and Clinton's campaign. So I think I believe he's stating that he knew the law firm got the money. But then his response is he didn't know what the law firm was doing with the money. Okay.
And interesting because in some of your other rhetoric about CFOs in the public sector, the private sector of our economy, you are very tough on CFOs. You've said on the record on many occasions that CFOs have a fiduciary responsibility to the organizations that they cover, that they should be aware of everything that is going on. So how is that a standard you hold CFOs in the private sector to, but you don't hold yourself to that same standard?
That's not a standard that the SEC holds CFOs to. It's about their financials and that the financials are put together in accordance with GAAP and that the numbers are accurate. And that they're.
So did you accurately pay for the Steele dossier out of the Hillary Clinton campaign?
Sir, I learned about that way after President Trump was a president and Hillary Clinton was a private citizen.
All right, well, let's move on. We'll probably circle on that another time. I want to reference a story in Capitol Account from June 13. Mr. Chairman, I ask for unanimous consent for the story be entered into the record.
Without objection.
The story notes that you met with Senator Tammy Baldwin in May about the SEC's proposal related to the 13D beneficial ownership disclosure, at which time you allegedly asked Senator Baldwin's staff, allegedly, to contact an organization called We the Investors to submit comment letters in favor of the 13D proposal. Subsequently, the SEC was flooded with 350 plus comment letters from so-called individuals, but mostly form letters stamped with the moniker We the Investors in favor of their proposal. It appears to me that you have engaged in astroturfing to advance your own agenda. Is this true? If this is true, is this a serious breach of impartiality that would violate the spirit, if not the letter of the law of the APA?
Sir, again, I don't know what the press is talking about. I remember a meeting with the senator. It was a good thought.
Did you meet with Senator Baldwin in May with respect to 13D?
I think that it's on my public calendar that I met.
All right, so that interaction will just continue.
James Comey and former CIA Director John Brennan in connection with the investigation of President Trump and Russia. No details about what they are looking at with Comey, but with Brennan reportedly suspected of possibly making false statements to Congress. Former House Oversight Committee Chair and Intel Committee member Trey Gowdy questioned CIA Director Brennan about all of this during what became known as the Russia investigation.
Do you know whether any of the underlying allegations made in the Steele dossier were ever tested, probed, examined, cross-examined, whether the sources were examined for reliability, credibility?
I know that there were efforts made by the Bureau to try to understand whether or not any of the information in that was valid, but I don't have any firsthand knowledge of it.
Did the CIA rely on it?
No.
Why not?
Because we didn't. It wasn't part of the
lie. We know from the declassified. That's just one of many, many lies, and we've, and that's Kash Patel right there. But that's not only demonstrably false, patently false lie. But now, with all the declassified documents, there's no way to even justify that statement.
The corpus of intelligence information that we had, it was not in any way used as a basis for the intelligence community assessment that was done.
Yeah, that's a problem for John Brennan right there. Trey Gowdy joins me, host of Sunday Night in America and here on Fox, and he joins me now. Great to have you with us, Trey Gowdy, and great to look back at your, everybody loved watching Trey Gowdy handle those moments because an oversight, it was a huge responsibility to try to pick this apart. But John Brennan's problem is that in one place, behind closed doors, he's saying that it was included in the report, that he wanted it to be included in the report. And then on the other hand, he's saying they didn't need it. Oh, we had so much evidence. We didn't need the dossier, which we all know was a Clinton-funded piece of campaign material, Oppo research essentially. So how do you see this investigation from the DOJ? What is meriting it, and where do you think this is going to go?
Well, I knew he was lying then. I mean, that was an open hearing, Martha. So as you know, you can't discuss classified information. But if you will look over my shoulder at that hearing, you'll see a familiar face, one Kash Patel, the current FBI director. We knew that Brennan was lying. That's why I wanted him on record. They relied heavily on the dossier. John Brennan knew all about the dossier. So Comey's a little bit different because we don't have him on tape quite like we do John Brennan. But with Brennan, it's just like a buffet of lies. You can literally go through the buffet and pick out which one you want. The guy that replaced me on that committee is a guy named John Lee Ratcliffe, who's the CIA director. So there are not two people in the world who know more about John Brennan's problem with the truth than Kash Patel and John Ratcliffe. And I'm very, very happy that they are looking into it. Overdue.
So John Radcliffe and Kash Patel were basically working alongside Trey Gowdy when this was all taking place. Now they're heading the FBI and CIA. So these are the first. We're going to have probably an indictment every couple weeks. Major and then superseding indictments. So I remember the media and Democrats said, Mueller time, it's Mueller time. It's like it led to nothing but 4 years of a failed presidency in Biden, and then, thank God, President Trump back again. But they would, oh my God, they'd be so giddy. Mueller time! And it was all about setting up and framing innocent people. That's what took place. And now the people who set up and framed the people are being indicted and going into prison eventually. And now the people who rejoiced in setting up and framing innocent people are saying, oh my God, despot!
Let's go to number 2 here. This is a quote from Fox reporting on the newly declassified email to Brennan from former deputy CIA director in 2016, warning Brennan about the credibility or lack thereof of the dossier. This is coming from his deputy at CIA. So in it, the message said that including the dossier in the ICA in any capacity jeopardized, quote, the credibility of the entire paper, this deputy said. And added, Brennan ultimately formalized his position in writing, stating, this is Brennan, that, quote, my bottom line is that I believe that the information warrants inclusion in the report. Completely different from what he said to you in that soundbite, Trey.
No, it's worse than that, Martha. He and Comey insisted that it be included. And why did they insist? Because their hatred for Donald Trump. Look, we knew Brennan hated Donald Trump. It just took a little longer for Comey's hatred to manifest itself. But what we're seeing now is it existed all along. Their hatred for Donald Trump trumped or overcame their objectivity. They're the ones who insisted that something that really wouldn't be fit for the National Enquirer. I mean, it's literally paid for by the opposition. Judges have criticized it. We went back and said, okay, Brennan said you made efforts to corroborate the dossier. Let us see where you tried to do it. And it's just a blank piece of paper. They made no effort. I wouldn't be surprised, Martha, if we didn't figure out those two were behind the leaks to the media. What they really wanted is the media to report Trump is under investigation for ties to Russia. So they got what they wanted. They didn't get the result they wanted, which was him losing the election.
Yeah. This is not what you would expect as laid out here from the director of the CIA and the director of the FBI. And people wonder why the approval numbers and their credibility numbers shrank so dramatically over the course of this period. So it's going to be very interesting to see where this goes. And we'll look to you as we follow the story. Trey, thank you very much.
So, ladies and gentlemen, it's happening. House Republicans refer CIA Chief Brennan to DOJ. The indictment is essentially already written. That'll take place, a week from now? 2 weeks from now, maybe sooner? They're not going to really spend too long. He's been lying for years and years and years and years and years, long before President Trump. He was accused of spying on Dianne Feinstein and Senate Democrats during President Obama's administration. Okay. Even Axios, Steele dossier, a widely discredited set of memos compiled in 2016 by former... No, it was compiled by the Clinton campaign and the DNC. They paid for it. They paid for it. Or it was, paid for by... It was literally paid for by Trump's direct political rivals. You couldn't make it up. If Trump had done this to Democrats, it would be the end of the world. Anyway, hit subscribe. Go to H.A. Goodman's other channel right now. I will be back later this evening. Check the channel every couple hours or so for the live stream. We'll have a live stream probably around 9 p.m. Eastern this evening.